I'm AC. This is Kurt. Let's talk about youth ministry. We're going to talk a little bit about culture today. I'm sure if you look at the news,
organizational culture.
no, like
Culture,
the world,
Oh,
Satan's playground.
okay. Well, now I know where you stand. You have just made it. You have just made it abundantly clear your opinion of culture.
No, but we're always. Being in youth ministry, culture is all around you, and everybody has a different view of how they view culture. And in light of the things that have gone on, of course, everybody saw VMAs and Miley Cyrus, and
yes,
I thought we would just talk about, how would you kind of like navigate culture?
I would just twerk my way through it. You just twerk your way through life.
That's the
that's my answer.
Twerk it. That's becoming like a new culture where
Speaking of culture,
that's stupid.
Just side note.
Yes.
I went on a missions trip to France a couple weeks ago.
Mm-hmm.
Business as usual when I left. 8 days later, I come back, and this whole "What Does the Fox Say" song. What does the fox say? Oh,
yeah.
Have you heard that?
Yeah.
When I came back, it was like a YouTube cultural. It's like the next Gangnam Style.
Yeah.
In 8 days, when I left, nobody had ever heard of it. From what I know, I came back, and everything was all about "What does the fox say," which is an interesting point about culture.
Yeah.
So here's what I'm picking up on today.
Yeah.
Normally we do like, hey, here's our top 3 tips. Here's 2. I have a feeling today is just us riffing about stuff. It may not be super helpful. Or is it going to be helpful?
It should be helpful.
It should? Okay. So here's one thought about culture.
Yeah.
It moves faster than ever.
Yeah.
Culture today moves at the speed of light.
It
literally,
social media has made it like
the world is shrinking.
fads are.
Yep. And in a smaller world and a faster world, the culture is just spinning quicker. And it leads us, here's one thought about culture. I think we have to make a choice as youth workers, are we going to try to continuously keep up with culture and be relevant with culture?
Yeah.
Because if so, it feels to me, and I'm older, I'm 47 years old, but it feels like, man, if I'm not careful, I'm going to be on this never-ending treadmill of just I got to keep up. Yeah. What does the fox say? Twerking, Miley Cyrus, Gangnam Style.
Yeah.
I mean, you name it, right?
Harlem Shake.
Harlem Shake. And by the way, if we did a Harlem Shake video in youth group this week, our kids would laugh at us for being. I mean, we might as well bust out an 8-track tape player, right? If in this week's lesson we reference Miley Cyrus's VMA performance. Old news. It's over.
Already.
I mean, life has already just spun and spun and spun. So that's an interesting thing is that.
Yeah.
Okay, so what do you want to talk about?
So
We've got like 5 minutes.
Well, no, I think that's a great point. I think for youth workers, sometimes, and we can do this in training too, we say, in order to relate to students, you need to go back, place yourself. And I would say to a certain extent, that's right. But only to the point where you know that, you made stupid mistakes.
Yeah.
You thought you knew everything and you really didn't know anything.
Right.
So those things you can carry on. But culture is moving so fast that it's hard to care for students thinking about where you were right now.
Yeah.
I mean, I just did some training for our training, and the statistics for kids who are having sex and sexting and just everything is just, from 20 years ago, completely different today.
Right.
From 50 years ago, completely different today. So it's important that we definitely look at culture because that's where the students are. Yeah. And for me to really care for students, I have to care for them in their context of culture, and it's completely different.
I think
when I was growing up.
I think one of the biggest things we have to wrestle to the ground, and it might be different for everybody, is I remember back in college. So back in the late '80s, I'm in college, and one of the books we had to read was Richard Niebuhr, Christ and Culture. Mm-hmm. So it's like a 50-year-old book. So even back then, it was 25 years old, and now it's 50 years old.
Yeah.
So this whole idea of how does the Christian, how would Jesus relate to culture,
Right.
has always been around. And he actually, I'm going to butcher it because it's been so long, but he actually talked, I think, about 3 views of how Christians, how Christ relate to culture. It's Christ of culture, Christ above culture, or Christ against culture.
Oh.
So this idea of is Christ, should Christians be in a warfare against culture?
Yeah.
Is Christ sort of ambivalent? He's up above doing bigger picture things.
Yeah.
You know, he's ordering the ways of the universe, and culture is really not relevant to his bigger plan.
Yeah.
Or is Christ of, in that, like, he is embedded in culture.
Yeah.
And moving within culture, maybe even using the culture that we live in to help perpetuate the gospel. Now, that's not exactly how Niebuhr would express it, but I think those thoughts are really interesting.
Yeah, I would say I grew up with a culture against, that God was kind of like against it, so we were like really sheltered.
Right.
The music you listen to, like what you referenced, let people know that you were watching this last night, and so you didn't really want people to know that you were kind of like,
you didn't go to radar movie.
Yeah, you didn't go to radar movies. You didn't watch certain stuff. It was too violent, or if it was too risky, or stuff like that. So we were like really, really. So I can relate to the against Jesus against it. I kind of grew up.
That's how I grew up too.
Yeah.
Our church. In the school I went to, in the denomination I was a part of, was very much against social dancing.
No.
Because nothing good comes from social dancing.
Yeah.
In fact, they were so against social dancing that when I was in college, we had this thing, hey, why is our denomination against premarital sex? It was a joke.
Yeah.
Why are they against premarital sex? Because it could lead to social dancing. It could lead to dancing. That's why you don't have premarital sex. But so
that sounded like that was like a typo, and they just said we are going to defend this till the day that we die.
But so I think it's good. The issue of culture is a tough one because I think, and this is what I love about the body of Christ. There's so much room for diversity, right?
Yeah.
And even Niebuhr's book, I think, was recognizing, hey, there's these 3 prominent views, and there's validity in all of them. Yeah. So I think the guy who says the world and culture is Satan's playground.
Yeah.
Man, we are in the world, but we're not of the world.
Yeah.
There is a warfare going on for the minds and souls and hearts of teenagers.
Yeah.
We better shield our kids.
Yeah.
I think there's a ton of validity in that.
Totally.
The guy who says, hey, we can't shelter ourselves.
Yeah.
We have to teach our students how to be salt and light, and how to navigate, and how to make wise choices within culture, and that maybe Jesus is somehow using culture. Can the Christian message redeem and use parts of culture to further the gospel? There's a ton of validity in that.
Yeah.
I think it's important that us as leaders, I think it's important for us, this is just my thinking on it, I think it's important for us to know which way we tend to lean, but also have an open mind towards the validity of the other thinking. Because culture is so nuanced, and because it's always changing, and I get it, God's word never changes, that's the one thing we can stand on, but, and this is just me, I go, but we have to be able to at least constantly think through. I think the person who completely ignores culture, completely is 100% against it to the point of,
you're not going to...
I think in this day and age, it's tougher for that person to have kingdom impact.
Yeah.
That's just my thinking on it. Yeah. But I think that's one for every youth worker to wrestle to the ground, because it impacts your theology. It impacts your practical theology. Yeah. When it comes to how you minister to kids, what kind of programs you run, will you listen to secular music during the opener or not? Yeah. Right?
Well, I think you have to be careful. We're going to go over, but I don't care.
Okay.
This is good. But I think you have to be careful for the ones who close it off completely, because you cast a real negative light, not just on the actions of the person, but on the person.
Right.
And students who are growing and they're still developing, that's a hard it's hard to contrast between what you're doing and who you are.
Yes.
And we're called to what people would say, hate the sin, love the sinner. That's hard to do for a student who's still developmentally growing to say, if everybody's pointing the finger at what they're doing and casting them in a negative light, to really separate them. So we have to be really careful not to kind of throw the baby out with the bathwater and really teach them how, why did they choose to do this, and how does that affect you? How should you look at that? Kind of brings me to the second point of, it seems like even the church, is really thirsty for like role models for our kids for some reason. So like if a Taylor Swift who comes out, she's good music and stuff, people are so quick to put her on a pedestal and say, okay, this is the girl you need to look up to. Or Miley Cyrus when she was with, when she was with Disney. But you would put her up in the limelight. Justin Bieber the same way.
Daryl Strawberry back in the day, remember?
Same thing.
Or any Christian
all
athlete.
These, Michael Jordan, and we're like running to the next person and running to even in Christendom, where the one girl who Miss Teen USA, who got that crazy question some years back and answered in a conservative way, and everybody was like, "Oh wow, she's
the new role model."
She was on every show. She was getting interviews,
and then
everything.
We find out that she's got
and you find out
pictures.
You got skeletons in your closet, and people are gonna, as soon as you get that stigma.
Well, I think
try to get it.
I think part of the reason we want role models is because we recognize how culture is such an influence in our kids' lives. Our kids are so into music and sports and Hollywood and the whole deal. They love it. They're embedded in it. So then adults go, well, hey, if we can't beat them, join them. So let's at least, hey, here's somebody who's popular who also loves Jesus. Like, isn't that awesome? And so we want to sort of redirect our kids' passion for culture towards someone in culture who we trust. And I think we're probably, I know we are. History has shown. I mean, when Daryl Strawberry first got saved, this goes back 20 years, right? But all of a sudden he's speaking at every church and at Promise Keepers, and then he falls off the wagon, he's hooked on cocaine again. Miley Cyrus is whatever, right?
Said she was a Christian.
Miss America, I mean, you name it. You name it. We are so quick. Tim Tebow so far, still going strong.
Keep it up, Tim.
He's still going strong. But it's because we're dying to point our kids towards something in culture positive. I would just probably say maybe we need to be a little slower. Keep pointing kids, and this sounds goofy, but just keep pointing kids to Jesus. Jesus is the role model, man. And he lived in culture. His culture was crazy, right? The disciples' culture was crazy. Keep pointing kids towards Jesus. Be a little bit slower to point them towards the latest Christian hero.
I mean, and I'm with you. I don't think it's a bad thing that we see people that profess Christ and they're out there, but I think we have to preach the other side too. That they're human. They're just like you. They could fall easily. As easy as they stand on that pedestal, they can fall off, and we have to make sure that message is heard.
And when they fall off, instead of now using them as the example of, hey, when you get too close to the world, you're going to backslide into hell. Instead of use them as an example of, hey, what do you think it would be like to try to follow Jesus in the limelight? Like, let's give the Miley Cyruses of the world the benefit of the doubt. Let's give, whoever, the Miss America, let's give them the benefit of the doubt and say, what kind of struggles do you think he or she, who's trying to follow Jesus, but also living in this really tough culture, man, if you were in her shoes, how would you have done things differently? What do you think some of her temptations are? And help them kind of go, wow, you know what? It would be tough to try to be a follower of Jesus in a goofy industry, and use those examples as really kind of good grace learning moments and empathy moments, as opposed to just point the finger of judgment at the latest cultural icon to mess up. Because I mean, we, hey, let's just point the fingers at ourselves while we're at it, right?
Totally.
Anyway,
Dude,
that was long,
good.
17 minutes.
Super long, but I think it was good, man.
Well, there you
Sometimes we just need to listen.
Sometimes we just need to riff. Like, we're just riffing today.